The new Spider-Man 2 game is out, and I have finally managed to play it, as my girlfriend's brother got it for Christmas. And I have to say, it is just as fun as the first game. And like the first game, it has complex villains. It has taken the source material of the comics and transformed the villains of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery into similar, yet new characters, giving them new backstories and drives that are both engaging and relatable. And as such, I have decided to take a look at these characters and see which one of the emotional spectrum Lantern Corps they belong in. Wilson Fisk. Now, he may not be in the game for long, but Fisk is a great character, and his machinations affect both of the games, as there are plenty of side missions in both the first and second game that show that he is still running a lot of the underworld from his prison cell. And this does make it easy to place him in a Lantern Corps. Now, you could be forgiven for thinking he belongs in the Fear Lantern Corps, as he is the ruler of the underworld and he does rule with an iron fist. But really, the best corps for him is Avarice. I mean, that is literally the entire point of the Kingpin. He is a kid who was born poor and then decided to own the world. His entire mission is about the accumulation of wealth and power. That is all he wants, to control as much of the world as possible. He is the personification of human greed. Hence why he's so fat, as they're trying to show this in his physical form. And of course, it's why he calls himself the Kingpin. The only thing he cares about is money and the things he can buy with it. Heck, I bet if you could see his prison cell, it would basically be a luxury apartment, with every type of appliance and luxury items that he can get smuggled in. I mean, if you bribe enough prison guards, which he obviously will have done, then there is almost nothing he couldn't get in prison. I bet he runs that prison like it's his own little kingdom. And for that, and so many other reasons, he has to be in the Orange Lantern Corps of Avarice. In fact, even his prison uniform is orange, which is a coincidence, I know, but still, it does fit this perfectly. Dook. Now, this character is probably the hardest to put in the right Lantern Corps. You see, he starts out as a hopeful idealist trying to save the world with his inventions, so the Blue Lantern Corps would be right for him. But then his desire for success and to beat Norman Osborn comes to the fore. So Avarice sounds right, as he desperately needs more money to fund his experiments, and he turns to many criminals and suspect sources in order to acquire these funds. But then he turns into a man obsessed with revenge. He wants Norman Osborn to pay, and he terrorizes the city, and even unleashes a deadly virus that killed thousands of people. So revenge becomes his main drive. But at the same time, he wants control, and he forms his own Sinister Six to take over the city.
Each of you has a job to do. Your debts will be repaid when we're done. Go!
True, it does just seem like a means of him getting his revenge, but I actually think it might be more than that. You see, all of Octavius's life, he hasn't had success. Not really. He's been living off of grants and barely getting by. And his character design is of a portly, baldly, middle-aged man who's not ugly, but he's also not that attractive. To put it simply, he is ordinary in every way, which doesn't add up with the fact that he is an absolute genius and clearly one of the greatest and smartest minds on the planet. He has great potential that he seems to have never been able to live up to. And so he becomes Dook, a terrifying and powerful crime lord. Now, it's sold as a means to revenge, but I think this is more of a Breaking Bad type of situation, where he wants to be powerful and to be seen as powerful. He wants notoriety and to be more than he is. So, although greed and revenge are part of what drives him, I think what he truly wants is to be feared. Feared for his knowledge and skills, for his inventions that he makes, and for the wave of violence and terror that he can rain down upon his enemies. So really, I think the Fear Lantern Corps is the best fit for him. True, some of the other ones do work as well, but he wants to be feared. He is powerful, deadly, and scary. Not so much because of his robot limbs, but because of his mind and the things he can do and achieve, and the lengths he's willing to go to. He has the knowledge and technical ability to create unimaginable weapons of destruction. And he has the know-how to arrange and organise campaigns of villains working in concert to bring about that destruction. He proved that throughout the first game, and I believe he will return in the next game, or at least in the future games, to be a new sort of Kingpin, taking over a lot of the criminal world and amassing power and powerful allies and other supervillains. So I think his ring must be fear. As I say, some of the others do qualify, sure, but fear is where he ultimately ends up by the end of his story in the game. And don't forget, it's not just about being chosen by one of these cores. It's not just that you have to fit into its emotional spectrum, it's also that you have to want it. We are defined by our choices. And I think without a second's hesitation that Dr. Octavius would go for the Fear Lantern core. As I say, some others do qualify, but I think that's the one he wants. And it does match him perfectly. Mr. Negative. Now, in the first game, I thought the most obvious choice for Mr. Negative was the Red Lantern Corps of Rage, because their Lantern Corps is all about revenge, and revenge is what drives all of his crusade. He wants to make Norman Osborn pay for killing his parents.
Over the coming days, your company, your city, and everything you care about will be destroyed.
Listen, jackass, I get threats like this twice a week. Why don't you grow a pair and tell me what you want?
To watch you suffer.
Now, Norman may have actually saved his life with his experiments and given him these amazing powers, but all Martin Lee can think of is how he had turned him into a weapon, and through Norman's reckless experimenting, made him kill his parents.
My parents died because of me! Because of what Osborn did to me!
So the Red Lantern Corps was really the only choice for him. It was very obvious and very clear-cut. But then the Spider-Man 2 game came out, and all of that changed. You see, in this game, we see a man who is realising the error of his ways. Now, at first, it doesn't seem that way, because it's not. He's still very much a criminal and a killer. But then he meets the Miles Morales Spider-Man, and Miles is able to show him that he has a choice in what he does, and that he can change the direction of his life. And amazingly, he actually listens, something no villain ever really does. But this one does, and he begins to grow and realise that he can never make up for what he's done, but he can try to change the world for the better in an attempt to try and make up for what is done, a penance if you will. He can try to help the people of the world. And if it wasn't for him learning this, then they never would have actually teamed up with him and been able to free Peter Parker from the symbiote's influence. And if they hadn't done that, then Peter would have never gotten the anti-venom suit. And without that suit, he probably wouldn't have beaten the symbiotes or Venom, as it was that suit that gave him the edge, and thus the symbiotes would have won and taken over the world. So already Lee is helping, and by accepting the consequences for his actions and trying to actively help in making up for them, he is letting go of his need for revenge. And so the only choice now is for him to be in the Lantern Corps of Hope.
I won't forgive you. It's just not in me. But I can't carry this hate for you anymore, man. So let's set things right. You and me.
As he is hoping that he could help those that he has hurt and help to improve the world as a whole. And it has happened before where characters with the Red Ring have let go of their need for revenge and moved to the Blue Lantern Corps. You see, with the Red Lantern Corps members, it usually goes one of two ways. Either they sink further into revenge and are consumed by it and never recover, or they see the light at the end of the tunnel and turn towards hope that things can improve. And of course that means they qualify for the Blue Lantern Ring. And Mr. Negative has moved away from his revenge and therefore is best suited for a Blue Ring of Hope. Which is kind of ironic since his name is Mr. Negative, but hey, that's the way his story has gone. And though you could argue that other rings are good for him, or at least he qualifies for them, none of them are as good a match as the blue one. It just matches his story perfectly, because it's what happens to killers and raging monsters when they turn towards the light. Instead of being angry and needing to kill, they become hopeful. And quite frankly, it's better for everyone this way.
Where are you gonna go?
To set things right. Your way.
Wow. Reforming your greatest enemy. Can't say I've ever done that.
Craven. Now, I have to say that I absolutely love what this game has done with the character of Craven. I honestly think this is the best portrayal and story of the character ever done to date, and I love his story in the game. He is a man who is the best hunter in the world, but he still cannot beat cancer that is killing him. At least presumably it's cancer. We never actually find out what disease is killing him, but he does have chemotherapy drugs in the game, so that would lead us to presume it's cancer. But in any case, Craven is dying and he refuses to become weak and die slowly in a hospital bed. He wants to go out at the top of his game as an apex predator.
Do you know what it's like to have your body betray you? Weakness will not claim me. If I am to die soon, I will die roaring!
But he can't just let himself be killed. That is not the hunter's way. The code of the hunter and of the warrior that he has lived by his entire life demands that he not only give it his best in his final fight, but that he can only be killed by the deadliest of beasts, only by someone who can truly beat him when he's at his strongest. That is the only way he will let himself die. And his whole quest in this game is to find the perfect death, to find the deadly enough enemy to end his life and give him a truly great ending to his story.
My final hunt.
So really, the only choice for him is the Death Lantern Corps, as he is obsessed with his own death. And of course, he spent his entire life in service to death as both a hunter and a mercenary, constantly killing everyone he comes across. Essentially, he's been leading a death cult of mercenaries all around the world, killing people. Now, this does also qualify him for the Fear Lantern Corps, of course, as he is intimidating in every way imaginable. And if not for the fact that he is dying and looking for the best executioner, then I would say that Fear makes the most sense. But since he is religiously obsessed with finding his own perfect death, to the extent that he is putting all of his resources, that means a lot, we're talking tens if not hundreds of millions, and all of his soldiers, all of his technology, all of his time, everything he has is going into him finding his perfect death. So I think the Black Lantern Corps of Death is the only option for this version of his character.
Thank you.
Venom/Harry Osborn. Now, Venom as a raging monster is easily put into the Fear Lantern Corps. I mean, that's without a doubt the case, as they are a monster trying to mutate everyone in New York into a monster, and then moving on to mutating everyone in the world into a monster. I mean, who wouldn't be scared by that? But let's not forget that the symbiote is controlling Harry's mind, and when Harry gets the chance to get free and save everyone, he does, sacrificing himself in the process.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now true, Miles is able to restart his heart and bring him back to life, but he is essentially a vegetable at this point, doomed to spend the rest of his life in a hospital bed. Now we all know that Norman Osborn is a super scientist billionaire with little to no morals, and so he is going to do everything in his power to bring him back, and he's going to give him some untested serum to make him come back to the land of the living, or something along those lines. Most likely he'll become some sort of Green Goblin monster in the later games. But as for Harry himself, I think the core that makes the most sense is actually compassion. Here is a man who has everything. He is the son of a billionaire, and he could easily spend the rest of his life exploring the world and enjoying all the pleasures of the flesh that it has to offer. I mean, that is what most spoiled billionaires' children end up doing after all. But instead, he decides to heal the world. He uses his insane wealth to create a foundation that will help solve all of the world's problems using science. And quite frankly, if more billionaires would do this, then we'd probably be living in a futuristic Star Trek world by now. Hell, we'd probably have cities on Mars. But of course we don't. And the reason for that is because it's very rare for someone with his life, especially after the death of his mother, to do this. I mean, he could have just faded into despair and selfishness and tried to find escape with his money and all the drugs and everything else he can get his hands on. But instead, he took his pain, he took his trauma, and he turned it into something positive. Now that is not an easy thing to do. And it's because of his compassion for his fellow man that he is able to do this. Now, to be fair, you could say that this is hope for a better tomorrow fueling this, so he could be in the Blue Lanterns. But I don't think that's it. You see, I think it's more accurate to say that it isn't hope that is propelling him forwards, but that he genuinely wants to help the people of the world. And that takes compassion in colossal amounts. He's not hoping we can do this and come together, he's trying to bring people together and save them. Not in a distant future he's imagined, but right now in the present. He wants to change things now to help the people who are on the planet now. And while the compassion ring is mainly for psychopaths without any compassion, and I know a lot of people are not going to get this far and they're going to say, oh no, you can't give them the compassion ring, that's just for nut jobs. But, hear me out, it also chooses those who have great compassion in their hearts. You see, people with a lot of compassion have wielded this ring before. And I think that this is the right Lantern Corps for Harry. Though obviously, like I said, Venom definitely belongs in the Fear Lantern Corps. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that the idea of Venom with a Fear Lantern Corps ring is absolutely terrifying. And it would also be an amazing game to play, as playing as just base Venom in the game is awesome. So with a power ring, well, that would just be insanely fun. In fact, it did quite annoy me in the game when Venom got wings. You see, I thought, oh, this is great, we're going to be able to fly as Venom, just like we were able to play as him earlier. But instead, it was just in the cutscene. So I was quite disappointed by that. Though hopefully we'll get to play as him like this in the future. There have been rumours that they're going to make a Venom game after all, and it would be pretty cool to be able to fly around as him. But anyway, those are my choices for the Lantern Corps that these villains belong in. Of course, they are just my reasoning for the characters, and you may disagree with my choices. This is a discussion video after all, so it is very much up for debate. So let us know if you agree or disagree with my choices in the comments, along with who you think will be the main villain in the next Spider-Man game, and of course what you think is going to happen with the future of Harry. Will he end up being some sort of mutated Green Goblin, or will something else happen entirely? Be sure to let us know what you think in the comments, and I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.